You know, I've been to a lot of basement shows and stuff over the years, but I mean, this place was a whole other story.
It was just two people that lived here, and we hadn't really thought of the basement as like a place to have shows.
What do you think about the music then as opposed to now?
Well, there was a bunch of different kinds of music. It was definitely a more, like I said, integrated scene. It was more about being a weirdo rather than being a punk or a metalhead or a hippie.
It's not really changed. It's just different people, but it's not really changed. I mean, it went through like a goth phase and a rockabilly phase, but I think all that stuff's stupid. I mean, you're just people anyway.
I didn't get really involved in the scene or anything. I just liked being around the people, you know. I liked kind of observing, really. But now I think I'm a lot more into it, and I know a lot more about everybody, you know, and I know more about what's going on. But I do think it's a lot different. I mean, because the major bands that I heard, you know, or the bands that I knew the best down here were like Malacco Plus and Borough City Rollers.
All right. Now some people say we used to be a ska band, so we'll try to impersonate those guys. It can still be fun, though. Down the road with a pistol.
I remember when I first started coming here, strictly the Chicago punk rock bands and local punk rock bands.
You're walking down the road with a pistol in your hand, Johnny, it's you, man.
As far as
the music, well, I think it's just taking the usual changes that have gone on with this sort of independent music that's been going on. Like when I first got here, it was much of the big bands were all, you know, pop punk type genre, and now I guess now it's sort of going into this whole like rock and roll revival thing.
It's still the same kind of music. To me, it's just like fast, aggressive music about people that like to whine about themselves. It's punk rock.
I don't really know any of the old bands from back in the day, like the original Lost Cross bands or anything, but I think there's a really good diversity. I mean, you get a band like the 407, they're doing a lot more of the rock and roll type stuff, and then Big Fat Nothin's doing punk, and Vehicle was kind of doing the Fugazi type stuff. And it's, yeah, I mean, there's definitely diversity, which is cool. It's not like everybody doing the same sound because they're from the same area and listening to the same influences. There's just like a really good variety, which is great. I mean, it's just totally cool to hear like something different, new bands, and just people doing their own stuff.
I think it started off, whenever I first started going, it was really punk rock and pretty consistent. A lot of the bands sounded alike, but now I think it's become more varied. People are getting more experimental.
All right, boys, let's go! 1, 2, 3, 4!
There's a million different kinds of bands, so I try to, like, you know, anything that's got like the right kind of attitude, you know, like the do-it-yourself type attitude. Like we have metal bands, we've had like, you know, artsy type alternative bands, instrumental bands.
I don't know, so there's not going to be balance because last year some people got hit in the eyes with some glass cut and whatnot, and so this year that's just not going to take place. I'm sorry, guys.
People are coming to listen to the music. You know, they can bring their beer if they want to, and yeah, I mean that's what it's mostly about the rock.
here. I didn't even know that there was a good music scene at all, so I was really impressed. Like, the more shows I went to, I got more and more kind of impressed that people were active in doing stuff and setting up shows, and there were local bands and whatnot, and labels and stuff, so.
You know, then they started having lots of bands here, and it just became normal mayhem. And then since then, a lot of people have moved in and out, but it's always been the Lost Cross.
When I was in high school, I was really into God and stuff, and so I heard about this place, but, you know, told to stay away.
I felt like an outsider because, I don't know, just because I didn't do the whole like punk rock thing, but you know, it was still cool. Like, there were other people that weren't punks, which I thought was, you know, cool. The place was filthy. When we first went in, alright, like, the dog comes out, and I'm like a dog person, so like, oh great dog, you know, and I go down and start petting it, and they're like, that dog rolls in its own shit, and I'm like, oh.
When did you find out about the Lost Cross?
In '87. Whenever I was in a band with this kid that used to go to punk rock shows at a place called the House of Voodoo. He would just like say, you gotta check out this house, the House of Voodoo. Well, I started hanging out at the House of Voodoo. And then I met people that lived there, and then I met the people that used to live here, Mikey Snot, and all those guys. It was all pretty cool to me, because I was 18.
Okay, so you came here when you were a kid.
Yeah, and then when I finally moved over here, I was already in bands when I was like in high school and stuff. So I started bands in Carbondale, started doing punk rock and stuff. So I used to do heavy metal.
My very first experience, I was with some friends and I was stoned off my ass. This is when I did. This is when I smoked pot, and I was so fucking scared because I'm like, what the hell's going on? And I didn't go into the basement. I just sat outside with my friend, and that was my first experience.
I started hanging out whenever I was about 15 or 16. As soon as I started having friends who were old enough to drive over here, we used to start coming over here, and we hung out at places like House of Voodoo, 611, Romex, and here. Like I said, one by one, all those places dropped off, and this place maintained for a while.
And actually, my freshman year, I wasn't as involved with the God thing as I was later, and there was this guy, he was a senior, and he made a fanzine, and he also like sold tapes of local bands, and I read a lot about this place then, and there was a bunch of other houses going on back then too, and so I'd heard of it and stuff, but then I got, you know, distracted by God for a couple years. After all that, like, I saw a lot of bad things happen in the church, and they started kicking us out of all the Christian venues, so we started playing in clubs and hanging out in Carbondale. And eventually we came here, yeah.
The relationship with this house didn't start until, I guess, 1986, when Mikey and Chris Rosinski moved in. And they started having small parties upstairs, and then Mikey had a band that was sort of starting, and it was really terrible, and none of them knew how to play instruments. So, I don't know, that's how this place kind of started.
First time I heard of this place was I was at Boobies one night after I'd been down here a while, and Tim, who used to live here, was outside advertising a show for No Empathy, who was playing here sometime, and I knew them from up north and everything, so he just kind of was talking about that show, and then I heard about the house, and I came by for a few shows off and on, and then a lot more from there on.
Well, they tell me your love is like a flower. In the springtime it blossoms so fair. So fair. In the fall it withers away, dear. And they tell me that's the way of your love.
And the word I always use is, it's like what I like about it is probably for the same reason that I liked the Christianity thing when I was younger. It's like community, you know? It's like, when I was a kid, like I had maybe 2 or 3 close friends, you know, and like was always scared of the popular crowd or whatever. And around here, everybody, and there's all kinds of different people who really hang out here, but it's just like, you know, it's a community. I don't know, that sounds hippie-ish or something.
When they're sober, they're pretty cool. When they get drunk, they're pretty nuts. and they like to break things, but I always join in. Yeah, but, you know, I live here, so that's always what I say. If somebody sees me smash a bottle on the floor, I'm like, I live here, don't worry. Yeah. I'm going to be the one cleaning up in the morning anyway. I believe I got closer. Nobody wins.
I was a shape it, but we didn't.
Go ahead.
Through this place and the scene that it has helped create and maintain, I've met some of the most interesting characters, just downright fucking great people that you could ever meet. Artistic people, creative people, caring people, people who are willing to bend over backwards to help you, you know, people who are willing to work their ass off to try to foster an atmosphere where people can still come and play music and hang out and witness that and be involved in the scene instead of it being at a concert or in a bar. You know, it's like I said, it maintains a personal involvement with music. That's, to me, that's the highlight of what it's all about.
There's always like a few people that are, you know, snobs and stuff, but basically I've always felt comfortable there.
They treated me like any other person in their house rather than like a guest, you know what I mean? And I guess that kind of caught me off guard.
The people that live there are wonderful people, and like, and that have lived there that I've known.
I like always having bands here and a place for people to practice if they need to. And I like the kids being here all the time. And of course I like all my old friends too, you know. But I don't know, the people who just show up every night just to get wasted kind of get on my nerves, especially when I study since I go to school now and stuff.
It turned out it was like a 7-minute smoke bomb instead of the, you know, 2-minute or 1-minute, you know, just quick. And I put it right next to the furnace, which proved to be a bad idea because it went through all the vents. And I actually walked across the street to my house and started laughing, and we watched smoke billow out, and a band called No Empathy from Chicago, who were later very good friends of mine, were playing at the time, and they at first thought it was really cool, but then they realized that there was nobody in the audience. They'd all run out of the house, and there was smoke billowing out the windows, and I just stood in my yard laughing, and Mikey, who was living there, the progenitor of this whole place, he runs over and he's like, you know, did you light that smoke bomb? I'm like, yes, Mikey, I did it, it was me, I'm sorry, you know, we'll clean it up, we'll get some fans. He's like, you asshole. And he starts kicking me in the ass. And then his roommate, she comes running out in the yard yelling, you killed my cats, you killed my cats. Her cats were actually in the house next door. But the house next door thought the house was on fire, so they called the fire department. So I remember running down the alley, being chased by this woman yelling, you killed my cats! And hearing the fire truck and watching it drive the wrong way up Elm to extinguish the fire that wasn't a fire. But that was a crazy experience.
Malcolm, break out your Bible.
Oh, talking again, godass.
The Lord is my database. I shall not spam.
Only treat.
He maketh me surf the internet. He leadeth me to tasteless porn sites. He restoreth my corrupted hard drive. He leadeth me in the paths of internet searches for his name's sake.
One of the things we try and reinforce to people is that, you know, don't come here if you're just going to get messed up and take drugs or drink a lot and smash the walls in. You know, come here for the music. That's what we're about. It's all about the music.
Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me through all that I download, and I shall dwell in the internet forever. Amen.
We played a handful of shows in St. Louis, and it's just like the people there, they're, you don't hardly have any support at the shows. You don't hardly get paid shit because there's nobody there. The bands, the people who are there don't really get into it. But you can come here just about any show, and there's people down there involved, man. They're listening to the bands, they're into it, you know, they're paying the covers, they're supporting the scene. as the scene dwindles, of course, the number of bands have dwindled. But it's like if you can continue to at least keep it going for a little bit. I mean, even if it's only for a handful of people, at least it means something to a handful of people, and they're dedicated and willing to try to keep it going. You know, the center has never been about making money, you know, or anything like that. It's just been always about having a place to play and a place to stay, basically.
Regis Philbin. Paging Mr. Herman. Mr. Herman. Paging Mr. Herman.
What do you think about the teenagers coming here now? Do you think this is a positive
Oh,
place for them?
fucking great. That's what I used to do. So, and people that were my age back then did the same thing for me and just let me hang out and raise hell, and I feel obligated to do the same thing because it was like a big part of my life.
I remember like when I was a kid, you know, going to shows, and there was always the older people, and you kind of felt intimidated. They weren't as sociable or anything. But here, I mean, it's just like, it just like really encourages everybody to come.
I've been coming down here for a few years. When I was about 19, I made some friends back home, and they were in a band called Short Bus. They used to come down here a lot, and I was kind of like their roadie because I drove a station wagon. So my car was big enough to hold the drums, so every time they played down here, I came with them, and that's how I got to know everybody down here, and that's why I decided to move here.
There's high school age kids here, and they're really cool. Like, they're probably almost half the reason why I put up with it is because they're really here just for the music.
With high school kids, with all ages, things like that, it's like they don't have much opportunities to see shows. Like there was one just on Friday in Murfreesboro, I guess, and it's, that's like, they only get these opportunities every once in a while. Like Guy Candy played a show out in like Farmington, Missouri, and then we had to go all the way to Missouri for like, you know, for an all ages show and everything, and when you can have them like right down the street, when kids can actually come and see music, be it punk or indie rock or whatever, I think it's awesome. I wish I would have had that when I was younger.
We're not like a party house. We're not like usual houses in Carbondale, like on College Street, where they have kegs and they're serving Jello shots and all that crap. We don't do that kind of stuff. We don't have kegs. We don't serve alcohol. If you want alcohol, you bring it yourself.
There's the old people, you know, who still come out to shows, but it's like the kids are the next generation.
Third or fourth time we played here, it was like storming terribly outside. And we like already brought our equipment here the night before, and we weren't thinking about it. I was standing on the porch talking to my singer, and then I was like, somebody was like, man, I wonder how the basement's doing, you know? And it was, I was like, holy crap, you know, all our stuff's down there. And then we come in the door, and it was the most beautiful thing, because like all these kids were like, they saw the basement, they realized the basement was bad, and they were bringing all our stuff up and taking it across the road. And they, like, we didn't move anything, you know.
I'm glad you're dying and I got that proof.
Like I said, the whole main point of it to me is to get the kids personally involved with music so that they have a real connection with what music's all about. It's people who are playing instruments and expressing themselves, and it's good to be able to maintain a relationship with those people and get to experience what it is that they're talking about. It gives the kids something other to base an idea of music on other than fucking MTV, you know, on the malls and popular culture. So yeah, I definitely think it's an important and a good place for kids.
I don't know how much longer the landlord wants to put up with it, but he's put up with it for 15 years. But I mean, the same stuff keeps happening. It's like the cops, I think, obviously know, and the city obviously knows that we don't have kegs here, so they can't bust us for stuff like that. So over the years, probably even in the years since I've lived here, like 3 years, we've probably gotten 12 littering tickets. They're just messing with us because I think the cops, I think the city has to make money off students. And since they can't ticket us for real crimes like underage drinking and selling kegs and stuff like that, then they're just going to nitpick with all these stupid city ordinances, you know. I mean, they just made us, like not even a month ago, get a new door, paint the outside of the house, replace all the windows, and now they're going to give us a littering ticket.
The city guy, the building and neighborhood service guy, he knows this place. I yell at him every time he drives by. He's a jerk.
He works for the city?
Oh yeah, he's the guy who writes the citations.
Oh, the little turd in the white car.
Little turd in the white car.
The music always comes on every time I hear it. Nom, 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 nom.
I used to live directly adjacent to the Lost Cross house, and yeah, they were really loud.
Do they keep you up at night?
All the time. They used to play the Now You're Messing with the Son of a Bitch song by AC/DC a lot, and they'd play it till like 4 in the morning, and it would keep me up. And that really irritated me about them, but at the same time, you know, I understood.
Homosexual necrophiliac. I fell in love with the monsters.
It was my 22nd birthday party. We all decided to eat acid. So we ate acid, and the party's like jumping, and the whole place is just packed all the way outside. And the cops like knocking on the door, who lives here, who lives here? And I'm like tripping, and so is Mikey, and I'm like, fuck, I guess we better talk to them. So I talked to the cops. I'm like, hello, everything's fine. I'm just completely fried out of my mind. And he's like, well, who else lives here? I was like, blah, blah, blah. Mikey comes running. I was like, I live here, motherfucking pig. What do you want to do about it? He's screaming, and I'm like, oh, fuck, we're in trouble. You guys get out to the car. So he takes us out to the car, which is parked on the side, and slams us to the back of the car. The cop begins, like, frisking both of us, and I'm being all cool about it. And he frisks Mikey, and, like, his hands pat his ass, you know. It's like, I'm sure you like that, copper. Oh, why don't you feel it again? Just touch it. Blah, blah, blah. And he's just, like, going insane, you know, and he's like, get in the car. So we get in the car, and he's like, he's taking us to the police station. He's like, man, I hope my kid doesn't turn out like you when he grows up. I'm sure he won't. He'll probably be a stupid pig and not a college graduate like me. Like that. He's like, get out! Get out of the car! So he kicks us out like 2 blocks later and lets us go back.
I think a lot of it is, I've actually heard that, because on Sunday mornings, you know, there's a church right there, and it's like got a pretty small parking lot. So a lot of the people that go to church down there have to park way up the street, and so they have to walk here, like with their kids and stuff. And they've actually, the city said, I think, to my old roommate, that they call, people from the church call and complain about having to walk by this unsightliness, like there was like, you know, stuff drawn on the outside. And
Do you know the story of the Lost Cross?
I have not a clue at all. I know there's a cross in the kitchen that says Lost Cross on it, and that is the Lost Cross, but the story behind it, I don't know.
Do you know why it's called the Lost Cross?
The story? Yeah. Well, everybody knows the story.
The story I heard was James Ricks he was one of the first guys, when they first started having parties and shows with bands. He lived here, and it's so cheesy. His band practiced in the basement, and it was the 80s, right? So he had this big, huge cross earring, and we're in the middle of practicing, and he's like, oh, and he lost his earring, so he started screaming that, I lost my cross, I lost my cross. And then they wrote a song about it that was like, I lost my cross, I lost my cross. And so they called their band Lost Cross.
Because, like, I did an article on the house, actually, for one of my journalism classes a couple years ago, so what I got out of it was one of the original guys who lived here, the so-called founder of the house, Mikey Snot, and it was something. They were cleaning down here one time, and he lost a cross earring, and then from there, I believe somebody started a band that was either called Lost Cross or had a song called Lost Cross, and then like it just kind of got adapted from there. And I mean, that's the best version of the story I know. And with that, I don't know if it's the necessary truth of it all, but that's kind of the myth, which, you know, might even be more important than the truth.
Yes, so it's all from the Bloodstained Tools song, Lost Cross. And some people have said Mikey lost a cross here or something, but I don't think that was true. And for a long time, they had a cross leaning, like, right where the mailbox is, against the front porch. It was kind of crudely made. And about 5 years after it had been standing there, a friend of mine and I decided, since it was a lost cross and the cross had never been lost, that we'd take it. So we took it across the street and burned it. Mikey got really mad, so we replaced it with a Century 21 sign that we just cut to the sides and then painted gray. And if you look at the cross that's hanging over in the living room, it's that Century 21 sign. So, yeah, it was kind of a cheap replacement. So the original one looked really rustic, and it looked like, you know, you could actually maybe crucify a small midget on it. But.
And then people just started bringing crosses over all the time. There's really no, like, everybody thinks it's like, ooh, like some, like, satanic or, what's the word, sacrilegious thing, but really it's about some dude's earring, you know.
And it was never, you know, you couldn't find it, and that's where, you know, the phrase comes from, the music never ends because the cross is never found.
Well, the party never ends, 'cause the cross is never found. Wow!
Can you tell me about the Lost Cross?
There is no Lost Cross anymore.
They're just having, I guess, just from what I hear, from what John said, it's like they just cracked down on, the cops were just cracking down on houses that was known to have a couple parties and things like that. So, and they were like on the list.
The recent problem?
Yeah.
Johnny got arrested.
Johnny getting arrested twice. One for not paying a littering ticket, which was stupid because I was here that night and there wasn't even really litter on the ground. And then the other time was for unlawful use of amplified sound, which is really dumb.
Definitely bullshit, and they're both in the same week.
I mean, he got out right away because Lost Cross is kind of, you know, it's like a family. People went following right after him and bailed him out.
So the cops like basically shut the place down? Or
Under Johnny's name, they shut it down.
I think we're going to be putting the kibosh on it for a while. Not going to be able to have shows here. That's just one of the drawbacks of living in a place like this for as long as it's been here. It's always been an easy target.
Thank you very much.
This isn't the end. Wait for Billy to drop mad science upon you, and he's got some plans. He's an industrious lad.
407 Productions, it's a little production thing that we're making out of one of our bands, Fighting 407. We're going to put it in the bedroom and start making t-shirts, stickers, and pins, silk screening operation. And then start running a zine out of here, start getting the website back online, hosting that on Gabe's server, starting to record over here, turn it into a kind of a studio production facility, and we're going to start trying to get things turned around, start doing, like, get the house focused back into more what it's supposed to be about, like building and maintaining a local music scene. It's just a hodgepodge group of guys who have a common interest and try to keep things going for basically the younger kids to get involved, because those are the kids will be the ones to take it over after we're all done. They like to get the name out there, to warn the parents the evils of punk rock music.